Good afternoon, EDH enthusiasts. I'm Flynn of the Planeswalker Project, and welcome to a Commander deck video. I've been experimenting with older commanders of late, seeing if some can be inspired into new designs, given the sheer number of cards designed for our format. One such example is Nin the Pain Artist, a 2-mana 1/1 Vidalcan wizard for a red and a blue. She has one activated ability that costs X, a blue mana, a red mana, and tapping down Nin. She deals X damage to target creature, and then that creature's controller can draw X cards. Nin offers burn-based removal on her, allowing you to channel mana into taking out problematic cards in exchange for letting that creature's controller draw cards. You can also pay a greater number for the X cost than the creature you want to target's toughness just to have that creature's owner draw more cards. This may sound strange, letting your opponents freely draw cards, but it does have some applications that work in our favor, and this will come into play a number of times, as we'll explain in just a moment. Starting off, we do want to have the appearance of a pillow fort or a group hug deck, to some capacity at least. The idea is to give more players more card draw so that they can play a consistent game and see more of their deck, and in exchange they can stay off our lawn and attack at our opponents instead of at us. It's fair, friendly magic. Cards like Kami of the Crescent Moon, Howling Mine, Temple Bell, Font of Mythos, and Fevered Visions all allow players to draw an extra card or two during their turns. The lattermost of Fevered Visions comes with a bit of a fun side effect that will almost always trigger and shock opponents for 2 damage just for having 4 or more cards in hand during their end step. These cards give all players some card draw, but sometimes we want some of our card draw to only affect us. Agar, the Freezing Flame, is a 3-drop giant wizard who works very well with Nin. Remember how we discussed briefly that Nin can deal damage to a creature that exceeds that creature's toughness? Well, Agar will give us card draw whenever a giant, wizard, or burn spell deals excess damage to a creature or planeswalker, making this a very good ability to get out as Nin begins singeing creatures. Nin is a wizard, so this will work to our advantage. Consecrated Sphinx is a classic 6-drop that lets us draw 2 cards whenever an opponent draws a card. This is definitely a kill on sight card for your opponents, but while it's in play, it's an incredible source of value as we cause opponents to draw cards. Red Death Shipwrecker is a 1/3 crab mutant with an activated ability. You can tap it to go to target creature that an opponent controls, that player draws a card, and you add 1 red mana. So we have effectively a mana dork that goads our opponent's creature and is a great way to deal with the more problematic threats. This transitions us nicely into our next package of cards, which aims to goad opponents' creatures into attacking other players. This will allow us to sit back and enjoy the fireworks and ping off whatever creatures we feel need to get pinged off. Agitator Ant lets each player put 2 +1/+1 counters onto one of their creatures, and the ones who do, goad those creatures. And this can help build up creatures into being big threats and insist that they swing elsewhere. Baloth Baratil would be a great target for these counters, to be fair. Creatures that opponents control with power less than Baloth's power are goaded. Whenever a goaded creature dies through combat, you create a treasure token. This is incredibly powerful, as our bulking him up through whatever means we can means that we'll be more safe from attacks. Geodrager is a 4/3 for 6 mana who has first strike and a landfall trigger. Whenever a land enters under your control, goad each creature that a target player controls. If an opponent has a large enough battlefield, you can goad them so that their creatures must attack and must attack another player other than you, if able. This is such a powerful card to drop as the game begins to come to a head. Vengeful Ancestor has an enter and attack trigger that goads target creature. Now whenever a goaded creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to its controller, making this an effective aid to the mass goad creatures like the aforementioned cards. See, this deck's largest weakness in the past was its lack of proper defense. Blue and Red's primary game plan was just to rely on the removal to take care of threats, and so we had pretty little in the way of bodies on the ground to protect us. But in this iteration, we can rely on the goad mechanic from creatures to keep other creatures off our backs. We can take advantage of cards like Kazul, who gives us some extra protection by threatening to spawn in 3/3 ogre tokens if the attacking player doesn't pay 3 mana for each creature coming our way. Those tokens can then jump in to defend us. We also have traditional pillow forts like Propaganda, Dissipation Field, and Reigns of Power. We're also on cards that take advantage of us drawing cards. Chasm Skulker gets bigger as we draw cards, and then when it dies, we get to make a swarm of 1/1 island walking blue squid tokens. Ironcrag Pyromancer bolts a target for 3 whenever we've drawn our second card this turn. Now, we have a lot of cards that trigger once per turn as we've drawn our second cards, and it can trigger on opponents' turns as well, so don't be shy about drawing cards on their turn. Mad Ratter gives us 2 1/1 black rat tokens whenever we draw our second card each turn. A classic commander card, Psychosis Crawler, burns each opponent for 1 damage for each card we draw. The Locust God gives us a 1/1 blue and red insect token with flying and haste. These token spawners give us extra creatures to defend ourselves with and are very high value for us. Improbable Alliance makes a 1/1 flying fairy whenever we draw our second card each turn. Lastly, we have 2 very unique cards that we can utilize Nin's ability in an unorthodox manner to give ourselves card draw. Stuffy Doll and the Brash Taunter. Both of these cards have indestructible, and when they're dealt damage, they deal an equal amount to an opponent. Stuffy Doll gets to pick a player as it enters the battlefield, and then it stays with that player, and then the damage it receives is also dealt to that opponent. Brash Taunter lets us pick a new target opponent each time it's dealt damage, and so we can use these cards as a means to inflict direct damage to our opponents by scorching our own creatures. In addition to using Nin to burn cards, we can also use the Fall of Karandros as a very high value enchantment. Whenever an opponent's creature is dealt excess non-combat damage, i.e. through Nin's burn ability, we amass Orc's X, where X is that excess damage. So say we use Nin to burn a 1/1 with 5 points of damage. That 4 excess damage then becomes an Amass Orcs 4 trigger, which gives us a 0/0 Orc army token and then puts 4 +1/+1 counters on it. If we already control an army token, we simply put 4 additional +1/+1 counters on it. The Fall of Karandros also has an activated ability for 8 mana, where it can deal 7 damage to a target creature. So if we can't get that damage from Nin alone, well, we can simply use it here. Our main win conditions do rely on our opponents being whittled down by swinging at each other with all of their goaded creatures, and then we swing in ourselves with some of our own creatures. We do have a number of creatures who actually can get large enough to threaten life totals, but sometimes we do need some alternate win conditions. A tried and true classic, the Lab Maniac, will win us the game if we go to draw a card and have no cards left in our library. An opponent will want to take the first opportunity to remove this, so you'll want to act fast after casting this to finish up the game. Triskite Echophile is back after being a fun win condition in my Maresil deck. If we have 13 cards exactly with this out in our hand at the beginning of our upkeep, we win. It's very unique, but it's a very underplayed card that might be useful in a deck such as this that wants to draw lots of cards. This deck's game plan is to get out our card draw engines, drop a Pillow Fort card or 2, and begin building up our defenses. We can use Nin to pick off threats and trade their opponents for the card draw. As we begin to build up more of a board state, we can begin to goad our opponents into fighting at each other. And once they've been worn down enough, we can just clean up and reach our victory. I really like that Nin can still be a creative deck after almost a decade. But let's hear from you. What do you think of Nin? For the full deck list, including the cards that we did not discuss here, you can check out the link to the Moxfield page in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, likes and shares are some of the best ways to help support the channel. If you're new here, remember to subscribe and check the bell so you never miss a video. And as always, I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you all next one.